Today is February 19, 2025. It's approximately 7:15, and the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association meeting is in session. So thank you all for coming tonight. We do a full house, we do a full agenda. Our district attorney will be here momentarily. We're very excited to hear what he has to say. First off, did you guys enjoy your food?
Yes.
So come on up, Alan. So the Valley Inn, I'm going to let Alan talk about the Valley Inn. But the Valley Inn is one of our landmark restaurants we're so blessed to have in the San Fernando Valley, let alone in Sherman Oaks. Alan is the son of the owner, so he is the owner. She does everything. His mom does everything you tell her to do, right? Okay, good.
Or vice versa.
All right, well, thank you very much. It was good. You know what this is? I've been doing this for 30-something years, and I think this is the first homeowner association meeting ever where we've had a restaurant, and the restaurateur actually went around afterwards and said hello to all you guys, right? But at the end, he took all the plates off. That's never happened. Thank you. That means I and Jules might get out of here by 12 o'clock tonight. So tell us a little bit about Valley Inn.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Brodetsky with the Valley Inn Restaurant. First, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to a few individuals. A big thank you to Matt Epstein, the president of the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, Vice President Bob Anderson, Vice President Maria Calban, Treasurer John Eisen, and Secretary Jay Weisberg. Your leadership and dedication to our community are truly appreciated, and we are so grateful for all the work that you do. Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of our brave men and women in uniform who are in attendance today. Your service and sacrifices mean so much to all of us, and we are deeply grateful for everything that you do to protect and serve our community. So let's give them another round of applause. On behalf of my parents, Boris and Sophia Brodetsky, who many of you have known for many years, I want to express my deepest gratitude for this incredible honor tonight. Unfortunately, my mom couldn't be here. She had shoulder replacement surgery last week, but she's healing well, and she sends all of her warmest regards. For those of you who may not know, my family has owned the Valley Inn Restaurant for 27 years, and we are so proud to be part of the Sherman Oaks community. The Valley Inn has been an institution in Sherman Oaks since 1947, when much of Sherman Oaks was still a bunch of farmland. Over the years, it has had 5 previous owners, but my parents have had the privilege of being the longest single-family owner out of all the owners in the history of the restaurant. Our commitment to this community runs deep. Throughout the years, we've hosted countless events that reflect our values and importance of giving back. We've raised over $200,000 for our local first responders through our Benefit of the Bravest events. We have hosted and organized tow drives benefiting LA housing and rallied the community after the horrific events of October 7th to raise over $100,000 for the Jewish Federation. We're so proud of these efforts and how our community has come together for these important causes. We've also been thrilled to co-host events with Tunnels to Towers Foundation, and our support for the brave men and women in uniform is something that we will always keep close to our heart. As many of you know, the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic were immense, but the unwavering support of our local patrons, many of you in this room, have helped us get through it. For that, we are deeply grateful. Your kindness, generosity, and continued patronage have meant the world to us. Before I wrap up, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge 2 very special people who made tonight's events more special, our incredible chef, Christina and Antonio. They worked tirelessly to prepare the delicious food you're all enjoying tonight, and we are so lucky to have them as part of our family. Let's give them a round of applause as well. We are also wrapping up a $75 gift certificate to the Valley Inn. All you need to do is just put a little card with your name and email into the bowl over there, which I think many of you have already, and we'll be reaching out to the winner via email. Thank you for that. Once again, thank you to everyone here and to the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association for recognizing the Valley Inn as one of Sherman Oaks' longest standing local favorites. My family and I look forward to continuing to serve you all for many more years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are you the oldest restaurant in Sherman Oaks, or is that Casa Vega?
I think we're older than
I think so too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I know that we're not older than the Smokehouse, which is in Burbank, right?
Right.
But in terms of Sherman Oaks, I think, yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's have another round of applause. Thank you. And you folks at home, and there's 100 and something of you guys that are sitting at home in your comfort of home. You missed a great meal tonight. It was really, really good. Okay, can I have the board come on up here, you guys? Our great board, Bob, come on. The Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, as you guys all know, I know you guys have all paid your dues, and if you haven't, you better get back there and pay your dues. But we can't do what we do, which is fight for homeowner rights and fight for this great community if it wasn't for this board. So, there you go. Oh, actually, before, Linda and Marty in the back, raise your hands. They do such a, not that Marty. Thank you guys for doing what you guys do. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson. I'm Vice President and Chair of the Transportation Committee. And I'm the one who fights Metro, although we can't figure out what they're doing right now. But I do know they spent $200 million doing it, so that's just, starting.
Maria Pavlou-Calvin, I'm Vice President, and I'm the Chair of Housing and Legislation, and the state has just started releasing state bills, so we're looking at them. There are a few that we're really concerned about, so you'll hear from us when we start studying these, so thank you very much.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Jay Weitzler. I'm Secretary of the organization, and the first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank whoever it was that had Matt tell the dummy who left his lights on that he did that, or she did that, whoever it might be. So whoever it was, thanks very much. Secondly, we had a great meal tonight by one of the older restaurants in town, but I want to mention to you, now this is a pretty young crowd. If you were older, you probably wouldn't care, but one of the very oldest restaurants in Los Angeles, downtown, the original Pantry, is likely to close in about a week. So, exactly. So if you want to do something over the next week, there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. But if you want to see it before it closes, which it's about 95% that it will, schlep downtown and take a look. Or have a meal, even better. It's a fun place. Lastly, I'd like to give a shout out to, of all people, Nithya Raman. And all of us have had, as this group, many of us have had our issues with her positions on housing and how we feel about her not really respecting, in our opinion, single-family housing as opposed to putting multifamily housing in residential areas. On the other hand, I was at the Hillside Federation meeting last night, and the council people that were there, Nithya was not at the meeting, but at a hearing for. Sorry. There was a hearing for a house going up in Runyon Canyon that, according to those of us in the Hillside Federation and many other people, this place should not be getting approval. It passed some of the housing committees, and now it's in front of the Plum Committee in the head, and she was at the hearing to approve or deny the building of this house. According to our lawyer, who's also a member of the Federation, and one of the other people from the Federation there, she was more prepared than anybody else in the organization, and more on the side of protecting the hillside area, the community, and the open space than anybody there, and asked the most perceptive and intelligent questions of anybody. So I'd like to have a shout out for our council person for the times that she does step up and, in our opinion, do the right thing.
Hi everyone, welcome. Tom Gleck, I'm the chair of the Land Use Committee. Join me.
Hi, I'm John Eisen, I'm the treasurer of the association. I wanted to ask, are there any deputy district attorneys in the audience? If you are a district attorney, stand up, please. We have one.
right, we have a couple more announcements and then we're gonna get to the main show. Jane's not here tonight, she does our restaurants every month, and so she'll be here next month. We have, is there a Flory, I'm gonna absolutely kill this name, but actually any of the field deputies come on up here because you guys are next. But is there a woman in the audience, Flory, how do you say your last name? Schulheis? Schulheis, does that name sound familiar? High school, English, she's here. And she's gonna grade you tonight on how well you do. Wave your hand. All right, come on up, we've got a couple field deputies. Say what? He was an excellent student? All right.
Hi, good evening, Sherman Homeowners Association. You've all seen me before. My name is Diane Rana. I am now District Director for Assemblymember Nick Schultz. So I'll keep coming out. Thanks for having us this evening. I just want to give you a quick update on legislative activities. Right now in Sacramento, as was mentioned, bills are being introduced. The last day for legislators to introduce a bill is this coming Friday. There are several bills that the Assembly member has introduced thus far. One that I want to mention is AB 306. AB 306 would place a moratorium on changes to the California Building Code statewide for residential building. The idea is to help people who've lost their home in any of the recent wildfires to rebuild more quickly, easily, and hopefully at less expense than if changes occurred while they were to the building code while they were in the process of rebuilding. So if you want to know more about that bill or you'd like to support it, please call our office. We're happy to discuss it. Assemblymember Schultz, as a former prosecutor, is very excited to be chair of the Assembly Public Safety Committee. He anticipates there will be a couple hundred bills which pass through that committee this year. He's also a member of the Budget Committee, the Budget Subcommittee number 6, which relates to public safety. He's on the Natural Resources Committee and the Utilities and Energy Committee. So thank you for your time. If anyone needs help with the state agency, the office number 818-558-3043. Please call us, we're happy to help.
Great, thank you. Tiffany?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Talene Grogley, and I'm the Sherman Oaks Field Deputy for CD4, Councilmember Nathan Roman's office. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Since last month's meeting was postponed due to the fires, I wanted to give a belated fire update for those who have been affected, and for those that haven't had a chance to speak with one-on-one since the fires have occurred. First off, I would like to say my heart goes out to anyone who has been affected, who has friends or family that has been affected by what had happened throughout LA just last month. Our office has been in constant communication with LADWP, pushing for updates multiple times a day, and while we were relieved that all available LADWP crews were in the field dealing with outages across the city, the lack of communication from LADWP was particularly frustrating for constituents and our staff alike. In many locations, efforts to repair power infrastructure was complicated by the fires and the necessity of being mindful of the fire risk. Equipment that needed to be repaired was often located in high fire risk, and crews needed to proceed carefully. So the council has spoken to LADWP leadership and will continue to do so, and is demanding they improve their communications with customers during outages and in general going forward. During the fires, our office had also set up an evacuation center at the Sherman Oaks Van Nuys Recreation Center with assistance from our partners at RAP and Red Cross. We had many neighbors around BSNO come to check in on evacuees and offer support. It was very heartwarming to see Sherman Oaks open up its arms to those in need. And as many of you know, due to Sherman Oaks' proximity to Encino and the Palisades fire, Sherman Oaks was placed under evacuation warnings, and I'm sure this is very stressful for many of you. And if any of you are experiencing any post-fire effects or need for resources, please reach out to our office. I'd be more than happy to help you. You'll certainly find business cards in the back. And for those of you who aren't aware, this past week, LAHSA had held their annual Los Angeles homeless count, which is a great way for our city to identify how much funding we need to allocate for homelessness in Los Angeles. I also attended the homeless count at the Public Basin yesterday, which is a severely affected area within Los Angeles that we want to work with Council District 6 to acquire additional resources for. I also wanted to let folks know that the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council and our office will be hosting a tree adoption event at the Asceno Park next month on March 22nd. So if you're interested in seeing your fellow community members or just adopting a tree or just coming by, definitely let me know or let Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council know, and we're happy to have you RSVP.
Yes. We need to wrap it up.
No problem. All right.
Do you have anything else that is super important other than just reading the whole thing?
No. Additionally, just want to say Van Nuys City Council will be meeting every last Friday of the month here in Van Nuys, so constituents can voice their opinions. Thank you so much.
All right. All right. So before we get to our district attorney, we've got a report from Captain Zine and our senior lead officer Jose. I want to take a minute though to thank Chris Zine and Jose and your entire Van Nuys Police Department. During the fires, these two guys were in constant contact with myself and other members on our board so that we could not just, I live south of the boulevard, but there's a lot of folks in Sherman Oaks that live north of the boulevard. These guys went above and beyond the call. I know we all thank the fire department, they did a fantastic job. But the chaos that was going on in this city, and these guys were here, the unsung heroes, you guys did just such an amazing job. I want to personally thank you for what you did. Mariana, I never heard from her, so I'm kidding you, Mariana, I'm kidding you. I didn't see you back there, you're so small. So come on up and give us a report on the state of Sherman Oaks. I know there's no homeless issue anymore, no crime anymore, right?
That's correct. Good evening, I'm the senior officer for the southern portion of Sherman Oaks. I just want to give you a little update. Please lock your doors for burglaries. We've been seeing a lot of reports coming in. People are not locking the doors. These suspects are looking for the opportunity to go into the windows, side doors, side gates, so keep those doors locked. Also, motion detectors lights are very important. Please keep those motion detector lights on the main entrance of your residence. These burglary suspects are going to the rear door, smashing mostly the sliding door window, entering through the rear window and going to the master bedroom. And they're taking all your valuables in there. That's they're in and out within 2 to 3 minutes. And by the time the police or your alarm company notifies you, it's a little too late. But I'll hand this over to Officer Hochman.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Officer Mariana Lobo, and I cover the northern part of Sherman Oaks. Now, I would say this, sorry, represents me, not things over here. My captain. I just want to remind everyone, before the fires and the current protests that are happening, we've been forgetting, some of us forgot about the terrorist attacks that happened in New Orleans. Because of the fires, we were so busy. I just want to remind everyone to stay vigilant. Do not get complacent and think that everything's moving on like it used to be. Remember the New Orleans attack, the Vegas vehicle explosion. Remember that we do have a Crime Stoppers tip that you can go online to crimestopperstip.org and submit any type of evidence that you see, and we will investigate whatever it is that you see. Please do not get complacent with that, please. I'd like to also remind everyone we do have a Community Police Academy organized by our Operations Valley Bureau. It starts February 27th on a Thursday, and it runs every Thursday for 7 consecutive Thursdays at our LAPD Davis training facility. So if you're available for 7 Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., give us a call, email us saying I'm interested. This is where we get credits for bringing people from Sherman Oaks. So let us know, and thank you so much.
Before you hand it over to Chris, I forgot one thing that's so important. you know, speaking of fires and speaking of safety, be careful what you buy online, you guys. There are some very inexpensive knockoff, like, you know, items that you can buy online. And there's the newest fire victim happened actually today, and it's Jose Saldana, and I'm actually going to do a GoFundMe because he bought one of those cheap warm-up jackets online on Amazon, and it caught on fire on his motorcycle in his bag, and it almost, so please be careful what you buy online, Jose.
Thank you, man, thank you.
I just wanted to embarrass him. Go ahead, Chris.
He almost burned down the station today. So again, thank you to the Sherman community. The Van Nuys division was the only division in the San Fernando Valley that was not impacted by fires, and that's because of the community. We had a lot of good tips for arson suspects, a lot of good tips as well for homeless encampments. We were able to get resources there to clean those areas up, so thank you for that. We were on tactical alert for about 28 days, which is the longest tactical alert we had. That was for the fires, the debris flows, the floods, and then we're off tactical alert now, but now we're done with protests and demonstrations. So thank you again for your patience. Regarding the burglary suspects, it's usually crews of 3 people. They're wearing hooded sweatshirts and masks. We also have the DoorDash burglars that are going to the doors, ringing the doorbell. They wait about 10 minutes and then they break into the back windows. If you see cars as well that don't have license plates, that's a clue that there's something wrong. So please, if you see that stuff, get video of that, call us, let us know. And then also our links to the DA. We had a couple of arson suspects. The DA's office worked very hard to keep those individuals in custody because one of them was responsible for about 8 arsons and they were going to be possibly released. So again, we have good prosecution from the DA's office. We're very appreciative of that, so thank you for that.
Thanks, guys. All right, so some of you folks who had the pleasure of meeting Nathan, is it okay if I call you Nathan? Okay. You came here when you were running for office, and you spent a lot of time with us individually as well as us as a group, and we got to learn a little bit about you. And you hit the ground running. You had a lot to clean up, and you've got a lot to clean up. And I know that this room, can I just see a show of hands as far as how many of you guys actually went to the polling place and voted for this guy? I've never done this. Look at this. And a lawn sign. All right, the one lawn sign you had. So you're preaching to the choir here. But look, these folks are very vigilant. Sherman Oaks cares a lot about the city of Los Angeles, but we care about the basic stuff. So I'd like to turn over to you and tell us a little bit about yourself. I think we know a little bit about you, but tell us about the meat and potatoes of yourself and some plans that you have. We've got a handful of questions from the audience, but I'd like you to take as much time as you want to tell us. You know the obvious questions that we're going to ask. So the mic is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me again to be in front of you. And I'll tell you, the last 2 months have been a little unexpected in some respects. If you had told me that we'd have a natural disaster in addition to everything else I had to do from day one, I would have said that it would have been a bit much. But what it showed and what was fascinating is the capacity for both the DA's office, law enforcement, firefighters, first responders to really pivot on a dime to deal with stuff that we have to deal with. So let me start with the DA's office. When I came into office on December 3rd, I was sworn in by Governor Schwarzenegger, which, if you've ever been sworn in by Governor Schwarzenegger, it's truly an experience. Because what happens when someone swears you in is they say, please repeat after me. And then Governor Schwarzenegger starts to read the oath, and quite candidly, I had no idea what he was saying. Which isn't good when you're in front of about 500 people. You need to actually say the oath if you want to take the office. So if you see the video, I'm inching closer to him. So I'm deciding I'm going to actually read the words as he's actually saying them, in order to pronounce them correctly, which I did. So we hit the ground running. And literally on the first day, what I did is I reversed the special directives that my predecessor, Gascon, had put in on his first day. Those were special directives that enacted an extreme policy. He called it decarceration. What that basically means is that he said up front that certain crimes and certain criminals would not be prosecuted, notwithstanding the facts of the law. And I basically ran on, and I said from day one, implemented my strategy to reject that extreme policy. But I didn't replace it with another extreme policy of mass incarceration. Another extreme policy that also doesn't look at the facts of the law. What I replaced it with is what I called a hard work middle, or a hard middle philosophy. It says we're going to look at each case individually, no more blanket policies. Blanket policies are lazy. We've got to do the hard work. Got to look at each defendant individually, their background, the crime committed, the impact on the victim, to determine who the true threats are to our public safety. And those are often the repeat offenders that need to go to jail, and the ones that aren't. The first-time non-violent offenders, if they violate society's laws, they got to pay back the debts in society. But this is where you can find a proportional punishment for the crime that they committed. That could be community service, it could be restitution, pay it back if you stole something, or it could be a diversion program if they have a serious drug addiction that got them to do the crime. We'll give them a choice. You go to prison, or you do an 18-month rigorous, one day at a time rehab program that if you succeed will give you a certificate and wipe the crime off the record. That is the hard middle approach. And so when I implemented it, the first people who said, thank God, were the 750 prosecutors who've been living under Gascon for 4 years. Because what I said to them is I said, look, take your thousands of years of collective prosecutorial experience and use it. Analyze the facts. Analyze the law, make the right calls. Obviously, there's supervisors all the way up to the DA, but I said to these folks, I'm going to trust that you're going to do your jobs that you've been doing for 10, 20, and 30 years, and quite well. And they thought that, basically, I effectively took the handcuffs off the prosecutors and done my best to put them back on the criminals. So we've been building that esprit de corps in every one of the offices across the LA County DA's office. I got 2,100 employees, 750 prosecutors, over 200 investigators, and the rest are support staff. We basically do 180,000 criminal cases every year. I've got a $500 million budget. So building that esprit de corps is crucial because in the last 4 years, the office lost 20% of its workforce. Basically, over 200 lawyers said they're no longer going to work for Gascon, and he couldn't replace them with younger lawyers because they didn't want to come to work for him either. So our recruitment is going gangbusters. I'm keeping the people that we have, and the rest of them are going out every day inspired to do the job of safety. So what we've done is to try to take that esprit de corps and then transfer it over to law enforcement. Because law enforcement, I mean, these folks do a dangerous and difficult job extremely well every day to keep us safe. In fact, when the bullets are flying in the building, they run into the building while we're running away. And these officers deserve our respect, our admiration, and since I've been the DA, our partnership. And that is crucial, because I need them to actually build those cases beyond a reasonable doubt with legally admissible evidence. And now they can never use the excuse to a victim, well, we built the case, but the DA has our hands tied. Because the DA's got a political agenda that says he won't prosecute. I basically said, no more political agendas. You bring us the cases, the good cases, and we'll give every case a fair shot. And then what we'll do is we'll do our best, as Officer Zahn was talking about, to not only have them arrest the people, but if they need to stay in jail, they need an appropriate bail, make sure they get an appropriate bail before they get out. So it's not an arrest in the morning, get out in the afternoon before they're even done writing the report. Because my overall goal, interestingly enough, is not to fill the prisons to the breaking point. If anything, that's the failure of the criminal justice system. My goal is to deter criminals from committing the crimes in the first place, thus saving a whole lot of victims in the process. So, thank you. So how do you do that? How do you deter criminals? Well, it turns out that the criminals basically are deterred by two things. The certainty of being caught and getting meaningful consequences for their actions if they are caught. Well, the certainty of being caught, we have to turn to law enforcement and the community. working with law enforcement to do their best to identify these culprits in all different realms, bring those cases to law enforcement, let them do their job, and then bring it to the DA's office. My job then is to make sure there are meaningful consequences for criminal actions. We'll give everybody due process, they can go to trials, they can present evidence, we'll present it beyond a reasonable doubt, and if we bring the case and we convict them, there will be meaningful consequences. Probably the best example of this recently are the wildfires. You know, the wildfires hit January 7th. I was evacuated. I live in Brentwood. I was part of the 200,000 people in the mandatory evacuation area. So I spent the next 10 days, well, at my mom's house, actually. Michelle says, say my mom is still around and she's doing very well. And so I and my brother and my sisters, for the first time in 40 years, spent the night at my mom's house. Interesting. My sister sadly lost her house in the Palisades fire. So I had to make a very strong stand every morning of that 8 a.m. press conference when I'm sitting with the Board of Supervisors, the mayor, the police chief, all the firefighters, eventually FEMA, the EPA, everybody's there. And I sent a simple message to the would-be looters, the arsonists, the people impersonating first responders, the price gougers, the people who are doing financial scams. I said the question is not if, but when you will be arrested, then you will be prosecuted, then you will be punished to the full extent of the law. And that strong deterrent message was designed to do just that. I said, as I was speaking out loud, this is your warning. I do not want any confusion. If you go ahead and get arrested, when we throw the book at you and you say, I had no idea that was coming, because for the last 4 years they didn't do that. I said, we got a new administration, a new philosophy, and that's exactly what we're doing. When we've arrested and prosecuted over 30 people from wildfire prosecutions. And that's based on the great work of law enforcement bringing us these cases, and the great work of a whole bunch of deputy district attorneys who are prosecuting this case. I use as one example the commitment of the people that I inherited. I didn't hire these people, I inherited these 750 people. One of our prosecutors had a house in the Eaton area in Altadena. His house actually is still standing, but to make it stand, the firefighters basically unloaded a torrent of water to save his house, but basically damaged everything inside of it. Problem was, he was in the middle of a murder trial. Yeah, he asked the judge for 1 day off, he got 1 day off. Every one of his suits was now destroyed. He had the suit he was wearing that day. He finished the trial in the same suit. And he got a conviction. And again, this is the quality of people who are represented in court in the district attorney's office every day in every court across this county. So again, if you ask me, what I've been surprised about, or what's unexpected, I'd probably say the wildfires brought out both parts of humanity. I saw the firefighters, law enforcement, even the victims, rally together and the community rally around them in a way that I haven't been privy to in a very long time in this community. It was beautiful. Then I saw the worst of humanity, the people who are trying to exploit this crisis. Shame on them. I call them out for what they are. They're despicable, and they will be prosecuted. But as an additional footnote, and I want to bring this to your attention, there was a magical period between January 7th and 17th, the first 10 days of the fire. And the reason I can tell you this is I was literally there every day with all the people from city, county, state, and the federal government. And for 10 days, people took their territorial disputes. Hey, this is a federal case, or a county case, or a state case. And they put it to the side. They took politics, and again, politics is all over the place there. Instead, politics is going off to the side. And for 10 days, these folks worked incredibly well together to get something done on an emergency basis, dealing with a natural disaster we had not seen since probably 1994 with the earthquake. So, I'm hoping that spirit of working together can be carried out into other problems that we have to solve in our society. Because I've outlined 6 of them as my top 6 priorities. And they are basically homeless crime, fentanyl poisoning, human trafficking, organized retail theft, residential burglaries, and hate crimes. That would have been a big enough agenda, by the way, if I didn't have the wildfires on top of it. And the wildfires slowed us down on our agenda, but we're back on our agenda. Because each one of these areas have been perennial problems in our society. The can has been kicked down the road too often and too long. And law enforcement has basically said to me, look, we want to get busy working on this stuff.
They can see our shoes now.
Oh boy. I'm glad I'm wearing shoes. And pants, for that matter. So again, we are back on mission. We are back on priority. It is it's the opportunity of a lifetime for me to bring 35 years of criminal justice experience, about 10 of it as a prosecutor, 25 of it as a defense attorney, to this job right now. So I'm feeling the turn in the DA's office. I'm feeling the turn with the partnership with law enforcement. Victims groups that the DA had abandoned for 4 years, we're back. We're back championing their causes. And then as far as the public goes, look, there are going to be complaints. I expect it. The criminals are going to take a bit of time before they understand that when they get arrested, it's not like the old days. You know, the book will be thrown against them. That message will seep in. It will take some time. But working with the great members of law enforcement and yourselves to figure out what is going on in your community and what we can do to help solve it, that is the privilege that I have going to work every day. So let me turn it to questions, if that makes sense. Yeah. Questions on anything you like. I'll even answer a question on the Menendez case. You'll hear we're still working on it, but yes, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. So, and again, if you guys do have questions, please write it down on this Ask Your Question sheet and just raise your hand and somebody from the board will bring it up. But I can't guarantee you guys that all your questions, although they are the best questions out there, they may not all get answered. A couple of comments or questions. You said homelessness was number one, that was in order, correct? That was in order of your hit list, or that was just your hit list?
Depending on the day, the hit list has different priorities, but yes, those are all the 6 top priorities.
Okay. You have to sit down, otherwise I'm gonna have to stand up and then, you know. Have you seen that Between the Ferns?
Yes.
Okay, this is Between the Ferns. We're just sitting here talking. I'm not gonna have anything crazy come out between the ferns. So homelessness is not necessarily a crime that is something punishable by the district attorney. That's more of the city attorney. What can your office do to effectively help with the homeless issue?
So let me give you the example of certain crimes that are being committed in homeless encampments. That for the last 4 years, the DA's office has played absolutely no role in. And by the way, as far as city attorney versus district attorney, in Los Angeles there is a city attorney. But there are 88 cities in Los Angeles County. 16 have city attorneys. The other 72 that don't, that's the DA who does misdemeanors. Every juvenile case is a DA case, regardless of whether or not there's a city attorney. And there's 125 unincorporated areas, like East Los Angeles. In Los Angeles County, we're the only prosecutors. So the homeless position is very important on what we want to do. So for instance, in the past, if an officer was coming to a homeless encampment and saw the following, they saw someone engaged in illegal drug use, meth, heroin, fentanyl. They saw someone engaging with criminal threats, loitering, trespass, certain aspects of vandalism, prostitution. For the most part, if they brought any of those cases to the DA's office in the last 4 years, the DA would decline those cases. That's why you had, and they used to call them, or they called them quality of life cases. And they were not in the quality of life business. I am in the quality of life business because I truly believe that a lot of crime that elevates into the much more serious crime starts with a culture of lawlessness that you can find in these quality of life crimes. So if you go around your community and you see people engaged in all these crimes and nothing is happening, then it's not a shock. At the next level up is, okay, organized retail theft, smash and grab robbers. That fentanyl becomes not just a little issue, but a huge issue. The human trafficking takes over the Sepulveda corridor, the Figueroa corridor, Western Avenue in Koreatown. That you get situations where these small crimes keep growing. So my message to law enforcement is that you do your job, we'll do our job. And one of the best examples of a partnership between law enforcement and all the agencies that deal with the homeless is called the HOST team, H-O-S-T, the Homeless Outreach Services Team. What it is, it's a partnership between the LA Sheriff's Department, trained deputies who deal with the homeless, plus the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, the Department of Mental Health, Public Works, Vocational Services. So they go to a homeless encampment. I'll give you a couple examples. Venice Beach, where they had 200 tents on it. The VA, right in West Los Angeles. Underneath the 101 freeways, over by the Rio Hondo River. They show up as a team, and they do a 5-point protocol. Identify everybody there. So they'll say, hi, I'm Bob from the host team, what's your name? Then assess their needs. Is it someone who's a vet who needs to get to the VA? Is it someone with a drug addiction or a mental, a serious mental issue that needs to get these types of services? Because the third thing they do is outreach. They pair the facility with the person who needs that particular service. Because there is a fourth and a fifth part of their protocol. The fourth is they put a 14-day sign up after about 6 weeks, and 14 days later, the truck comes and takes everybody's stuff if they're still there. Turns out, though, that when you treat the homeless humanely and you build their trust in this partnership, they've only had to arrest 2 people in the last 7 years, moving thousands of them. And they've been able to get these people into facilities that actually have helped many of them. So that's where I think law enforcement plays a partnership with all these municipal agencies, with the community, with the LA City Attorney's Office, in order to, again, tackle the homeless crisis at the point at which the crimes are potentially occurring. Because a DA can't build homes. A DA can't provide jobs. A DA can't educate anybody, and a DA can't give them health care. So I got to rely on all the people who can do those if we really want to solve the homeless crisis. But my part of it, working with law enforcement, is to actually go after the people committing crimes and keep the streets safe.
So, this community, I know most of the folks in this audience, most of these folks are very compassionate for people who are homeless because of a situation. Because they lost their job, they got evicted, there's abuse. Those folks get housed very quickly. The folks that, most of these folks here, I think I'm speaking for most of these folks, we're kind of tired of the same story about that, we need to build more homes. We need, we need to take, compassionate. The folks that are on the streets that are in our neighborhoods are into drugs, are mentally out there, should not be on the streets for our needs and for their needs. Building a home for that person, all they're going to do is destroy that home. They're not going to stay in that home. So we can raise billions of dollars, we can spend billions of dollars. That's not the fix. That's not the fix. So the fix is taking a super hard approach on the 80% of the homeless people that either have mental illness, have drug addictions, alcohol addictions, and get them, warehouse them, not necessarily county jails, but that comes from the top. That leadership needs to come from the top, and it's got to be a hard-ass approach to get the job done. I think everybody in this room is just kind of tired of, we're going to get, we had Karen Bass here in November, and before the fires, we're talking about all this. We've been talking about the homeless problem for a long time. Are there solutions that are real solutions?
So you're right. It's, whether it's 70 or 80% of the homeless population suffer from a serious mental illness, substance abuse, addiction, or both. It's a huge number. If you use 75,000 as the homeless population in LA County right now, you know, you're estimating about 50,000 people suffer from these ailments. You know, when Gavin Newsom came up with the care courts, I actually had a lot of hope for it. Because this was an idea that we're going to create a court structure to get these seriously mentally ill people in, get drug-addicted people in, get them treatment, and be able to make a dent in this. Turns out the care courts are flawed. Why are they flawed? Because they require the seriously mental ill person to voluntarily agree to go into some facility and then stay there. It's not going to happen for a whole bunch of these folks. So what happened, one of the solutions, and it's just part of the solution, but I'll give you what happened. In 2010, we have a facility downtown that's called Men's Central Jail. Holds about 4,000 people. Next to it is Twin Towers. Holds several thousand people, including the mentally ill population. Right now, the largest homeless shelter in California, well, not just California, but the nation, might be the world, are the LA County jails. One of the largest populations of mentally ill people are the LA County jails. Of the 12,000 or so people that will be in an LA County jail tonight, over 4,000 of them have serious mental illness. I mean, that's the extent of that problem. So here's what happened. They had a plan. Literally, they had the plans, and they hired a contractor in 2015 to tear down Men's Central Jail. It was built in 1963. Its shelf life was over by 1993. That place is horrible. I've been there too many times. It literally is bad for the prisoners, it's bad for the guards, it's bad for the visitors. It's a horrible facility. It needs to go down. So they had plans to build a state-of-the-art facility with 1,000 state-of-the-art mental health beds for this population, to give them treatment. Then the Board of Supervisors changed. They went from an approved plan to new supervisors who came in with a philosophy that said, care first, jails last. They paid a breakup fee to the contractor and have shelved those plans for 10 years. So we do not have a locked facility where you can put seriously mental ill people, determined by the court, by the way, to be at that level of mental illness, in a locked facility. I am going to work as a district attorney to see if we can basically reverse that. Because if we don't get the facilities to deal with this population, Mayor Bass is, I would say this to her if she was here, you're banging your head against the wall. She said in January she housed 180 people. Great, I think that's fantastic. If I had to guess how many new homeless people showed up in Los Angeles in January, I would guess more than 180. And certainly throughout the county, the numbers are only going up rather than down. So we will do our best on the law enforcement side to deal with the chronic criminals in the homeless population. That's what Proposition 36 basically was targeting, those chronic criminals. But it's still going to be, we're going to put them in either state prison or county jails, but eventually they're going to get out again. And unless we can figure what to do with them while they're there, we're going to be seeing this problem next year, the year after, the years after that. I'm happy to advocate as part of the solution, and I hope I'll find partners along the way.
Well, I know this audience, if you come up with some solutions as far as the change of sentencing, the change of the type of warehousing, I know this group is definitely on board with that. And again, even those 1,000 beds that you're talking about, you've got 75% of 60, 70,000 people, that's 50,000 that folks that, for their safety, should not be on the streets. For our safety, they should not be on the streets. You know, the budget that our law enforcement officers, the time that these guys spend in dealing with homeless is shame on us. The fire department, what percentage I heard the other day that that 75 to 80% of the fires that the fire department, and the responses that the EMTs go out on, are on homeless issues. You know,
True.
okay. So the money that we're spending, not just on building housing units that aren't even occupied, that the city builds, and then they're not finding housing for them. There are solutions. I mean, I can come up with some solutions right now. Just no one wants to talk about it. I mean, 50,000 people. What happened with the Eden fire? There was toxic soil. What happened with Palisades? There's toxic soil. What happened? They package it up and they move it out. Would you want to live in the toxic soil? That's what is happening in Los Angeles. We have 50, 60,000 toxic souls that need to be placed where they can be helped, maintained, medicated, and that's a hard thing to say. It's a horrible thing to say. But if a family member of mine was mentally ill, I would not want them on the streets. And if they didn't want to get off the street, I would hope that some system would be able to pick them up and be able to put them into a system where they could keep them, give them some pills or give them some medication, where they could get medical supervision, not bullied by other homeless people or hustled by other homeless people. Or, again, it's a hard thing to say, but are you folks happy with the solutions that's happening with the homeless? Anybody happy?
No, and to even put a point on your argument, today, tomorrow, the next day, somewhere between 6 and 7 homeless people in Los Angeles County will die from a fentanyl overdose or some other type of drug overdose. So if you care about human beings, if you care about the homeless, you're literally condemning a decent percentage of them to death every single day. You're right about the fire department. And when they say that, depending on the fire station, it's 75% of their calls have nothing to do with fire. Those are calls often to homeless areas where someone is overdosed and they have to give them Narcan to try and bring them back. The fire department in certain fire departments is running low on Narcan because they have so many calls, often for the same people, week in and week out. So again, this is a problem that I'm not going to kick the can down. I will put a big spotlight on this problem. I'm hoping, and the mayor has basically, she's put her mayorship on the line on her solving the homeless problem. She's got a year and a half left to show some progress. I'm hoping she does, because it's a problem that is absolutely necessary to solve.
Okay, Bobby Baker, are you here? There she is. So she has a question for you. It's my understanding that the city attorney had a program where deputy city attorneys were in each police station to help with assistance. And there was a program for the district attorneys as well that had that. Is that something that you will reinitiate or add to your plan?
Excuse me. Here's where not having adequate staffing presents a problem. So when we were at 1,000 lawyers instead of 750, the ability to assign a deputy directly to a police department is that much more high. I've got 20 different district attorneys' offices across the county, and they work every day with law enforcement. So there are effectively deputies assigned to different police departments, because if you're in Van Nuys, or you're in Pomona, or you're in the Antelope Valley or Long Beach, you're generally dealing with either the sheriff's department or local law enforcement. So as we get increased number of deputies, deputy district attorneys, I'll be able to assign them to special tasks dealing with certain communities, depending again on what the problem is in that community. So if the problem in your community is organized retail theft, that's the primary problem, we have deputies that are specially trained in that. If the problem, again, could be fentanyl, it could be human trafficking, it might be a combination, by the way. We'll do our best to assign the deputies who have specialties in these areas to the communities that are suffering from these problems.
Okay. Charles, you want to raise your hand? So Charles asks, will you cooperate with ICE by turning over known violent illegal immigrants who are in city and county jails?
So let me tell you where the DA's office intersects immigration. Back in 2017, the state of California passed SB 54. That was a sanctuary state law. It was actually challenged by the Trump administration back then, and they lost in the courts. So that is the law in the state of California. As a footnote, the sanctuary city ordinance that LA City just passed, symbolic, did almost nothing new that the sanctuary state legislation has been doing for about 80 years. Now, there's two major carve-outs in the sanctuary state legislation. The first is for violent and serious criminals. It says if someone has committed a violent or serious criminal act, law enforcement may communicate with federal immigration authorities about that particular criminal. The second carve-out is for warrants. So, for instance, when the DA's office files a charge against someone, the ICE officials, and they do, monitor the public databases, and they can actually see if that particular person who's now been charged with a crime is in their database as an undocumented person. They can then go to court and get a warrant for that person's arrest. And that warrant has been honored for the last 8 years and will continue to be honored, even under the sanctuary state or the sanctuary city ordinances. So that's where the DA's office intersects. If someone, documented or undocumented, commits a crime in this county, they will be held accountable.
Thank you. The next question, I'm going to add a little bit because I had another question that was similar to this. Ian, who? Elon? Yeah. Back there. You know, you talked earlier about, thank you, Dee. You talked earlier about you do the crime, you do the time. Unfortunately, your hands are tied on certain sentencing, and the state and our local, you know, the penalties don't necessarily add the crime anymore. They've been diluted. There was a ballot measure on the same ballot that when you got elected that kind of the pendulum swinging the other way at this point. But so Elon, am I pronouncing it right? Elon wants to know when are you going to step up the penalties on home burglaries? It's out of control, beyond out of control. Give the serious sentences, and it'll slow this down.
So you're right. The district attorney's office enforces the law. The district attorney can comment on legislation, but ultimately it's the legislators that'll come before you folks that you need to put pressure on if you want higher penalties, for instance, for residential burglaries. But let me give you an example sometimes where the legislatures will actually get in front of the issue. So when wildfires broke out, and I cracked open the penal code and said, what is the penalty for looting? Now you would think the penalty for looting, that's looting someone's house, would be more severe than just residential burglary. Why? Because it's done during a state of emergency. I looked at it like, wait a minute, it's a misdemeanor. It's not even a felony. It's got a maximum of a year in county jail, no prison time. By the way, same thing with impersonating a firefighter. It's a misdemeanor, 6 months of county jail. So what happened 2 weeks ago is that I was at a press conference and 4 of the state assembly people from LA have now put a new bill in the state legislature, and hopefully they'll get passed and the governor will sign, making looting a felony, increasing the penalty to 2, 3, or 4 years in jail per incident. So if you loot more than one place, you could be looking at multiple counts of looting. Same thing, by the way, for impersonating a first responder. So that's a situation where the legislators, even though it's a Democratic state assembly and state senate that doesn't pass many additional punitive measures when it deals with crime, they saw that the citizens were screaming out for accountability when it came for wildfires, and they took the initiative to pass or to at least promote these bills now. So to the extent that you folks want tougher penalties out there, when you have your state legislators come here to speak to you, make sure this is a priority for them on your behalf.
Well, and if you're trying to get some of these things done as well, reach out to us, because these folks in here, they send out emails, they make phone calls, they know some of these state folks personally. And so just like with, that Maria can attest to, our organization is known for not taking no easily.
Excellent.
So, we're not taking questions from the audience. If you want to write something down, I understand your question is the most important question, but there's other folks that have already done it. Thank you. So the next question, you had actually mentioned something. You'd actually mentioned something earlier about making sure that the bail fits it as well. There was a ballot measure. Actually, it wasn't a ballot measure. It was just something that was passed in the State House about 6 or 8 years ago that actually reduced bails by quite a bit. So what's being done, this is from Nancy Segoya. She wants to explain the current bail policy.
Okay, current bail policy. So for years, we had a cash bail system. What a cash bail system is if you commit a crime, the law enforcement officers would look on a chart, and the chart would have the penal code section and then an amount. And then that would be the amount that bail would be set at. Now, let's just come up with random numbers. Let's say it's burglary and it's $50,000. Well, $50,000 might be the perfect amount to deal with someone's risk of being a flight, they're never going to show up in court, or they're a danger to the community, that they might commit more crimes. But what if it's a serial burglar who's been doing it for a long time? $50,000 might not be high enough. And what if it's someone who's never done burglary at all? It's a case of mistaken identity. And that person, though, doesn't have $50,000. They don't even have the $5,000 to give to a bail bondsman. So they're going to stay in jail, lose their job. They're the provider for their family, lose their ability to provide their family because they can't make the $50,000 bail. So what needed to happen was we needed to tweak or amend the cash bail schedule to deal with these extremes on both ends. That's not what happened, of course. What happened is the people said, okay, let's just throw out the cash bail schedule entirely. Let's go to zero bail. That was the next step in the process. Again, makes sense for that guy I just described with mistaken identity, but doesn't make sense for the serial burglar who's now back on the streets before the ink is even dry on the police reports. So then the courts came up with a slight modification. We're going to have the cash bail schedule. We're going to have a lot of crimes be what's called cite and release, where they just, basically the police will write a speeding ticket if you steal less than $950, for instance. But we're going to allow the police to go to a magistrate judge if they think the bail is too high or generally most likely too low. They call that bail deviation request. And at that point, the court, the magistrate steps in and says, okay, what's going on here? And you make your case. This is a serial burglar, or this is someone who hasn't done anything wrong in their life. Either way, the magistrate looks at those factors and figures out the right bail for that particular situation. So that's where we are now. We're in this sort of modified situation. Again, when you had a DA before who was pushing zero bail, it's not a shock that the defense attorneys and the whole system was focused much more on zero bail than a reasonable bail to deal with these risk factors, which is where we are now.
So where we are now, but where should we be and where should we be going, and what can you do or what can we do to get us to a point where you said that the time's got to meet the crime, but you also said the bail's got to meet it. It sounds like the bail system isn't helping your situation.
So again, what we have found, and remember there's 2 times that bail will be set. When someone is arrested, the police are just arresting them, they go in front of, either get the bail set, or they go in front of a judge. But then, if the DA's office charges them, there's another opportunity to set bail. Because now it's not just an arrest, it's an actual charge. And if we think the bail is too low, we can ask the court to reset it higher. And by the way, the defense attorney can say, the bail is too high, we want it lower. Either way, you have a discussion in front of the court, which is actually what it should be. Turns out bail is a constitutional right in the state constitution. Unlike the federal government, you actually have a right to bail in the state system unless there are some extreme factors that say that there's no way you're going to qualify for bail. So again, the system is far from perfect, but hopefully now with the DA's office advocating for the correct proportion and the correct bail in these cases, working with law enforcement to also make sure they use this bail deviation process, we can hopefully get the right bail in the right situation.
Okay, Nancy also asked a question, and I'm going to give you a follow-up question on this. So she just wants an update on what's happening with the smash and grab residential thefts. Retail thefts.
So I recently actually spoke to a group that was basically law enforcement from all over the county that are specially trained to deal with organized retail crime. Also in this group was the head of security from Amazon, Home Depot, Target, many of the big box retailers that are the ones that are suffering from organized retail crime. I will tell you that they are moving fast. They've arrested and prosecuted in the last year and a half about 173 people from across the county. Now, it takes sometimes a while to find these people, and sometimes, sadly, they have to rob stupidly more than one place before they make the mistake that allows law enforcement to go after them. But not only are they going after just the robbers themselves, the smash and grab burglars, they're also working their way up the food chain. Because nobody steals an Hermes purse to use it. Okay, back to my mom. My mom would never steal one. If it landed on her doorstep, she'd probably use it. But these people who are stealing it, they're not stealing it to use it. They're giving it to the next level fence who gives them money. And the fence either goes on to an online marketplace very often, or sends it to another location to turn it into money. So what we are doing is we're working our way up the food chain. Because it turns out that if you can make it so these people, if you can get rid of the fencers, so there's no one buying the Hermes purse from the robber, they're not going to be stealing it. Because again, they're not stealing it to use it. So we are doing our best to take down the entire the vertical crime network that goes all the way up to the people making the most amount of money.
Okay, so these smash and grabs, these home invasion robberies, these burglaries that we have on a regular basis, especially in this community, these folks, a lot of these folks, there's usually used to be that tagline, usually got to go to jail or go to prison, something like that, right? So I know we hit you with this the last time, but you weren't the DA yet, and you kind of looked at like, that's kind of an interesting idea. I don't know how mechanically it could work, but these guys that are hiding their faces, hiding their identity, coming into our homes, coming into our businesses with masks, with hoodies, so that they can't be identified, not because they have a cold and they don't want to spread germs to other people. Why not enhance the crime, enhance the penalties if you hide your face with a mask or a hoodie during a home invasion, it's a simple, one of the things you talked about was deterring folks from doing crimes. So if it's harder for them, if it's a stronger conviction, if they're using a hoodie, they might think about it, right?
So let me tell you what I've told. Let me tell you what I've told other communities on, in part, how to deal with this situation. You need to make Sherman Oaks undesirable for burglars to come here. Now, how do you do that? Part of the way you do it is by showing up at these meetings, working together. I'm sure you have different types of groups that deal with crime, whether it's Crime Stoppers or any of the types of neighborhood watches that you can afford, to make it clear that if a burglar comes on a block, there are people who will be looking out for everyone else. When we talk about motion lights, if the motion lights flash on, by the way, not just in your house, but all the houses on the block, they're going to choose a different block where the motion lights aren't there. If you have cameras, if you have dogs, if you lock your doors, They're looking for the weakest part, because they don't want to be caught. That's not part of their game plan, is to get caught. They want to get in and out of a place as fast as they can. Let me tell you about something that is coming at some point to Sherman Oaks, because I've already seen it in Beverly Hills, and I've already seen it in Malibu Lost Hills. And this is the concept of a real-time watch center. So let me use Beverly Hills as an example. And by the way, if any of you get to Beverly Hills and go to the police station, ask for a tour. It's fascinating. What it is that the Beverly Hills Real-Time Watch Center is keyed into every public-facing camera in Beverly Hills and every license plate reader. It has an AI, an artificial intelligence overlay, and it has people whose jobs are to watch screens. And they get alerted when there's abnormalities, when there's certain patterns that don't make sense. Like, for instance, someone coming in without a license plate at all. It'll trigger a response so that it'll flash up on that particular screen that you got a car without a license plate. Since they have license plate readers, if it turns out a license plate has been entered into the system as a license plate involved in a car that it was involved in a crime, it triggers the alert immediately. Beverly Hills has 2 full-time drones that go up. Those drones can get there in minutes, where even the fastest law enforcement officer is going to take longer to get there. And then give the police eyes from above on what's going on down below. And then Beverly Hills advertises this throughout the entire community. Drones are in place. You know, cameras are watching you. Their next step, by the way, so far they only have 2,500 cameras in the system. This is just for little Beverly Hills. They're going to ask people who have Ring cameras, public-facing, not into your house, obviously, to sign up for the system so that now they can access even more cameras throughout these neighborhoods. So if they get a hit, someone calls in, they say, so-and-so we have a suspicious car on this block. They can activate the cameras quickly on that block, see what's going on. If someone has now jumped the fence and someone says the burglars are in the house, they send the drone up there. Police officers can surround it. A text can go out to other neighbors, basically saying, stay in your house, a robbery is occurring, the police are on their way. And what it'll do is it'll make those communities undesirable for people breaking in. The Chileans will stay in Chile, the Colombians in Colombia, the Venezuelans in Venezuela. Or they'll go to other cities or counties throughout this state or this country, but they'll leave Sherman Oaks in this county alone.
So, I'm going to go back to the question, because in the community that I live in, and you can talk to Captain Zine about this, we have 13 motion capture cameras that the residents pay for. We know everybody that's coming in takes a picture of everybody's license plate, everybody's walking, everyone's riding a bike, takes a picture of their face. It's all on private property, we pay for it. We also have hot license plate readers that reports directly to the Los Angeles Police Department. We still have home invasion robberies. We still have people in hoods and in masks that come into our residences' homes. We have motion detector lights. We have neighborhood watch meetings like you've never seen before with Chris Contest, who's been to 2 of them. We have hundreds of people that are active in our community, in my neighborhood. We still have home invasion robberies. The crime's not fitting, the time's not fitting the crime. So a simple solution that we're talking about as far as what's wrong with that? What's wrong with the idea of a mask? It sounds a little crazy, but everybody here knows, and every time you see one of these Ring camera captures of 3 guys climbing over a fence, they're not sitting there looking like this, they're sitting there with their boots on, they've got masks on, their license plate has been unscrewed. So how do we help these guys? Maybe by identifying these folks.
So again, actually what's interesting, in some states they've passed laws, and I don't know whether or not they've been successfully challenged, that when you protest, you want to march in a protest, and you can wear it, and in the past you wear a face mask, and the law says you can't wear a face mask. So those laws have existed in other states. I'm unaware of it existing in California. Again, this would be a situation the next time you get someone, either from the city, the county, or the state here, proposes to them. I don't know.
Would you support it if we did that?
If it's legal. I don't know the state of the law, because again, if someone wants to wear a mask nowadays because they just literally don't want to get COVID, or they're worried about germs, can you prevent that person from wearing a mask under this law? It depends on how it's written, and maybe it's written in connection with a crime if you wear a mask.
That's what we're talking about, yeah.
Again, you can, for instance, the crime for residential burglary right now is, if it's charged first degree, is 3, 6, or 9 years, depending on how it's charged.
What is it?
3, 6, or 9 years of state prison. So I've got state prison to work with residential burglary. That what will stop these folks, again, is both the preventative measures you take, law enforcement's ability to capture these people, and again, if they're doing it often enough, they will make a mistake. That's how they've been caught. And the third part of it is the recognition that they do get caught, now they'll get meaningful consequences. Because again, the crooks still haven't experienced, my regime yet. For the last 4 years, if you get caught, it wasn't that big a deal. We're going to make it a big deal. And that's going to take a little while to seep out into the criminal community, but I'm absolutely convinced that we can get there. I'll use it as an example, not going back to the 1960s or 70s, but going back to 2014. Why do I pick that year? It was considered our safest year in the last 50 years. And that's when deterrence was working. In that year, a record number of people didn't commit crime. And it was basically 11 years ago. Because they understood that the laws were going to be enforced by both law enforcement and the DA's office. We're going to do our best to get back there.
Okay. So, of all the questions that we fielded actually from emails as well, I know you told me that you have another prior commitment, so I told you we'd have you out here at 8:30, and we're keeping very close to it. So, surprisingly enough, I'm not surprised, because you brought it up about the Menendez boys. This group cares more about public safety and homelessness and getting things done the right way than we do care about a couple of spoiled rich boys that murdered their parents. But if you want to, not kind of biased on that, but that's just my opinion, that's not the association's opinion. But if you want to comment on it, if you want to talk about it, it's
Sure. So let me give you a quick update. You're not going to get the final answer to the question of where I stand on all these issues, but I'll tell you where we are. The Menendez case right now is on 3 different tracks. The first track is something called the habeas track. That was a motion filed in May of 2023 that says there's new evidence that should give the Menendezes a new trial. That is pending. The second track is clemency. That's a petition directly to the governor that he could have acted on anytime he's been governor. He's been governor since 2019. He could act on it tonight and basically commute the Menendez's sentence and let them out immediately. The third track is something called resentencing. What that is that's not going to give him a new trial, but it makes a pitch to the judge that based on a variety of factors, they should be resentenced to something different than life without the possibility of parole, which is their current sentence. Because if they get life with the possibility of parole, then their next stop most likely would be the parole board. And if the parole board wants to grant parole, guess who ends up with it at the end? The governor. And the governor can either agree for the grant of parole, or he can reverse it. And if you ask me an example of where the governor has recently reversed and granted parole, I would point you to Sirhan Sirhan. Sirhan Sirhan was the assassin of Robert F. Kennedy in 1968 in Los Angeles. He originally got the death penalty, but then the courts switched out the death penalty and got life with the possibility of parole. So for 40 years and 15 parole hearings, the parole board turned him down. But on the 16th parole hearing, when he was 78 years old in 2021, all of a sudden the parole board granted his parole. So it goes up to the governor. The governor reversed the grant of parole, keeping Sirhan Sirhan behind bars, because the governor said, notwithstanding the fact that he's 78 years old, that he has never accepted full responsibility for what he did, so he has not exhibited insight into his actions, he still constitutes a danger and is kept in behind bars. So, I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to come out, because I'm still working on it, on the habeas motion, on the resentencing, but that's where we are in the process. So let me thank you all so much for inviting me tonight. It's been a pleasure to see you.